Yo, 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 what's up, everybody? Thank you for tuning in to yet again another fantastic indie creator interview. We're keeping it geekly with our good friend Scott Kysh of Wrath. We're here to break down chapter number 4, his upcoming Kickstarter, and yeah, breaking the ice with our new friend. So welcome to the stream. How are you doing today, Scott?
Good. Great to be here. Thanks for having me on. You know, we're trying to promote this Kickstarter and lock in chapter 4.
Yeah, let's go. We had some technical difficulties. It's raining over here in beautiful Ohio, and shoo, I don't know what it was. We were dropping some heavy frames. So unfortunately, we are on a brand new YouTube link, and I had the dangest time trying to get the pronunciation of my man's last name. It stumbled me up in that intro. I was like, did I get it? I got it.
You got it.
Let's go. But speaking of getting it, let's get to the point, and that is breaking down who you are and what we're here for today. So let's start with right off the top. You know, give us a little bit of how you got into creating comics.
Sure. I mean, it was basically, I've always loved comics, was a big Batman fan growing up, and I was listening to, of all people, it was Dan Harmon, and he was being interviewed by Kevin Smith, and they talked about how he got started in writing, and it all started with his friend Rob Schraub with Scud the Disposable Assassin, and they literally just made it out to Hollywood after he sold the movie rights to that, and they just looked up a book in the library on how to write movie scripts, and they're like, you just have to get started. It's that simple. And I had this idea I wanted to do, and I never really took to like prose writing, and so I thought like maybe I could do comic books, and so I started looking up how you write comic book scripts, and I started refining this idea for what turned out to be Wrath, and plotted out 6 chapters, and just started chipping away at it. And that was one thing I had to learn early on is, you know, as somebody who's never done anything like this before, you can't just walk in and throw this script on the table and say, hey, everyone, I need 10 grand to make this graphic novel. I know you've never heard of me, but I want to do this. One of the first things I felt I did right is I broke it down into individual chapters and have been producing them one at a time, kind of, you know, eating the elephant as it were, and taking apart piece by piece into smaller achievements. And we've made it through 3 so far, and this is chapter 4.
No, that is awesome. So this has been your first break into creating comics?
Yeah, I would not recommend this. You have to have a strong desire to finish. Most people say like the best way to get started is to do an anthology. I would echo that unless you really have something that you feel very strongly about and you want to do.
No, that's awesome. So who's all a part of the creative team with you?
So I started off with a young artist named Drew Smith. She helped me with this concept piece that I'm talking through right now. And we started doing some pages, and we put together a Kickstarter. That didn't work out. And she was working full-time at the time and felt a little pressure with having to keep up and do all the work. So she took a step back, you know, we talked about it, and she became my production assistant / cover artist, and we put out a word for page artist. You know, and that was a really tough thing for me because my whole thing is I hate telling people like no, you know, it's like especially when they're like really excited and I'm like, yeah, that's not what I'm looking for, you know. So I you know, did the best I could to, you know, point out what they're doing great, and but you know, that's not what I'm looking for. I'm probably gonna have to do that again at some point. Not looking forward to that. But anyway, I did actually make quite a few friends, people that still follow my project and I follow theirs, which was really cool. But I ended up getting this message from a guy named Emilio Utrea, and he actually had done several comics before. He showed me some of his stuff and gave me his version of this, which we, you know, affectionately call the Rage Puppy, and I loved it, and that's what we have in the comic pages is Emi Utreya's Rage Puppy. And the great thing about working with Emi is he kind of brought that our team was lacking. You know, he'd done some books before. The art for a series on Dynamite right now called Project Superpowers.
Oh, that's awesome.
So yeah, I was excited when I saw that in my local comic book store, because I was like, that art looks really familiar. And then I got home and saw it on his Twitter page. I'm like, oh, that's why it's Emi.
We have Patrick's Raider over on YouTube. Smash that like button, y'all. It's awesome. Hey, I appreciate you, Patrick. And absolutely hit that like button. Be sure to subscribe as well. But I mean, it's way too early to do a call to action right now. Patrick, I love you, though. Appreciate you, man. Scott, so I really like the concept of this book. It's about a man who's able to like manifest his trauma like into the quote unquote rage puppy, and this thing is pretty beastly. I had the opportunity to read chapter 1, which was available to read for free on Global Comics, and it was a really awesome read. There was a lot of heavier like tones within it, though. I mean, what was the reasoning for focusing like on the trauma and having that be sort of kind of like his catalyst for having this, you know, this rage puppy, for lack of better words, like exist?
Right, sure. I was working at the DA's office as a clerk in the family violence unit, and you know, I saw how these victims were dealing with, you know, all sorts of horrible things that were being done to them that were outside their control, and what kind of effect that could have on them. So I'd seen how it can completely destroy people, or how others were able to turn it around into some sort of strength, into something that, you know, they could use to drive them to do something positive. And and that's kind of what I wanted to do with this series and with this idea I had, which stemmed essentially, like the original spark, I guess you would say, was from my sleep apnea and coming to realize that my body was doing all these things physically while I was sleeping, and I would wake up with no clue. And I thought about what would happen if my emotions were able to do that. And that was kind of the original spark, as it were. And then I paired that with, you know, what was going on around me at work. And, and essentially that's what gave birth to this, you know, trauma monster that you see in chapter 1.
So can you give us a little bit about the protagonist, though? You know, like what his name is, what he does. I mean, he goes through some really heavy things. So I like the way you kind of built him up, you know, experiencing some of those flashbacks and some of the present day stuff, as, you know, such as he gets jumped at one point. And I don't think it's, you know, I think we're safe to spoil some things with it being chapter 1. But he goes through some rather like adult, like, you know, situations for, I put him at probably roughly being a high schooler around this age.
He's basically just out of high school. He's about 19. But yeah, it's his name's Doug, basically, and he had a rough childhood. His biological father was very abusive, especially towards his mother. And at some point, you know, his mother was able to find the strength to basically say enough is enough, and took Doug and got him out of that situation. And, you know, a lot of people aren't that lucky. Some people deal with it for, you know, until their adulthood. But he was lucky, and his mom kind of started over with him and got him into this new life, got him into a better family unit, which she eventually finds, you know, someone else that she falls in love with and marries. And also this move got him to meet his best friend Nicole, and all these things kind of built this structure of stability around him, that kind of shaped him into something else that maybe would have been different had he stayed with this abusive father. But, you know, those scars were still there. And so through this series of events you talked about, he kind of gets dragged back through that and had those feelings pulled to the surface. And that's when we see the past catching up to him, and that power manifesting itself like it does, that inner anger.
It's also, and I don't know if this is the same for chapters 2 and 3 and potentially 4, but in chapter 1, there's a lack of color. You know, it's there's no color pretty much essentially until Doug has his like dream trauma sequence, and then we see the rage beast come out of him, and that's when we start really getting like splashes of color. Like, what was some of your direction for that?
Part of that is I'm a big, like anime and manga fan, and so I wanted to do the black and white. I love that with, the whole manga thing, but there are certain things, especially with the creature, that I wanted to do with the color. So when I was initially pitching this to my publisher, Wicked Publishing, I was like, I'm back and forth on this, and one of the guys was like, why don't you just do both? And I was like, I can do that? And they're like, oh yeah, totally. And so that's where we decided, and I love the idea because it's like, it gives that creature that unnatural, like this thing doesn't belong here look to it. And so we ran with that, and you do get more colors starting in chapter 3. It's a little bit of a spoiler, but yeah, we start adding another color. And you'll see that more in, I don't know if you're going to see it in 4 so much. But yeah, definitely Onward.
So why, wrath for the emotion, with there being so many different emotions you could associate with this level of like trauma and such? What was your main goal for focusing on wrath?
It goes into that initial thought about, losing control of your emotions. That I feel is one of the hardest ones to control is anger. It can really push you outside of your normal, reactions or I guess your daily routine. Like a lot of times, maybe it goes back to when I was in childhood, like I would kind of lash out sometimes, and the comments I'd get from the adults would be like, that's so unlike him. Why did he do that? So to me, it's one of the few emotions that really you can lose control of. And that was one of the things I wanted to focus on.
So with your previous job, I mean, it sounds like you were seeing a lot of heavy situations. I mean, was this in any way a way for you to kind of work through any of that, like kind of like get that off of your plate and your shoulders and like kind of like out in the world too?
Definitely. I found it kind of therapeutic. You do deal a lot with stuff like that. It's kind of funny you bring it up. Like my wife used to complain because she'd be like, oh, check out this true crime thing. And I was like, I'm not in the mood. And she's like, why not? And I'm like, I deal with all this stuff all the time. I finally brought up this analogy for her. I'm like, I work in a pizza place. So like, sometimes I feel like eating pizza, and sometimes I'm just like, I want nothing to do with the pizza. So yeah, it was a little bit therapeutic. It was a way to kind of, find a positive out of all that negativity that you're dealing with. One of the good things about working there is most of the time you get to see some of these people brought to justice that were doing these horrific things.
No, and that has to be another form of like, redemption for what these children and family members are going through. And in a lot of cases like that, especially. So I think right now would be a good time. We did a good job of kind of building up, the reasonings for doing this and kind of what went into it. Let's go ahead and pull up the Kickstarter and take a look at the campaign that you're working on. Right there is the link for anyone watching. Please feel free to check it out. If you're unable to back it, just simply share it on Facebook or Twitter. Word of mouth is 100% free. You might have a friend who will love this book. We are looking at Wrath, chapter number 4. The story of Wrath continues as Doug and Nicole discover Doug isn't the only person with this mysterious power. Currently looking at 575 of a pledge goal of 2,500. 16 backers with 21 days to go. And it looks like we have a video right here. We can watch this if you'd like, Scott. Yeah, so just a heads up, you might not be able to hear it on your end, but we're going to be able to hear it loud and clear on ours. And if you try to talk, we might not be able to hear you.
They say time heals all wounds, but they never mention the scars it leaves. No matter how hard I try, the past seems to linger, just below the surface. Waiting for something to pull it to the surface.
Yeah, that thing is beastly looking.
I'm terrified of what may happen if I lose control again.
Oh, Mrs. H. Okay, I know her. That's awesome. Yeah, congratulations. Looking at 23% of goals. So how are you feeling right now, Scott? Is this you've done a Kickstarter before?
Yeah, I'm not. I feel like we're on track for where we've been on previous campaigns. We've met our goals and just a little bit beyond that. I'm really pushing harder to get on to more things and get this in front of more eyes, and kind of push that boundary a little bit more, because anything we get over goal, we just use to put into next production. Like I said, I'm going for that 6-chapter graphic novel. So.
And yeah, we're looking at the story of Wrath. It's an ongoing 6-chapter graphic novel. Tells us the story of a young man named Doug who is trying his best to navigate the changes in his life and struggles he must face after discovering he has a special ability that's linked to his traumatic past. Words are so hard tonight. They have currently finished 3 chapters of the 6 and are in current production for the 4th. The goal for this campaign is to secure the funding to help complete, print, and publish chapter 4. After meeting our goal, additional funds will go towards the stretch goals and help producing the other 2 remaining chapters. So here is a look at the story so far. It centers on Doug, a young man who finds himself in over his head when he discovers he has the ability to summon a creature whose existence is tied to his childhood trauma. The story follows Doug and his best friend Nicole as they search for answers about this mysterious ability's emergence and what consequences it might bring. So I think this is a really cool panel right here too. So what's he doing? Is he meditating at this point?
So what you kind of get in chapter 2 is him kind of coming to grips on, what he went through in chapter 1, where it's like just dreamlike fragments, and he's just trying to piece together what happened, and he starts seeing things that match what he dreamed in real life, and he kind of confides in Nicole. You see that at the end of chapter 1, and so they start exploring, well, what could this be? So they kind of start fiddling with like astral projection and like out-of-body experiences, and they actually get it to a point where he can bring it out himself, and it's got a little bit of a different form, as you can see down there in that panel. It's a little bit more humanoid, and he starts seeing what he can do.
So how many pages are we looking at for chapter 4? Are they all? I know chapter 1 was roughly about 40.
Yeah, I think we are looking at least 28 pages on chapter 4. If you do back one of the catch-up tiers, be that digital or physical, it is over 120 pages of story content.
Let's go. So chapter 4, physical and digital issues. As you would expect, the main reward is the issues of chapter 4. There's going to be 2 different covers, the standard cover and the campaign exclusive variant cover. So let's take a look at those right here. So this one, the one with the white background, that's going to be the cover A?
Yeah, that's our standard trade dress. If you scroll down a little bit more, you can see it compared to the other chapter covers, where they all kind of have that void white background.
Okay, right here. I got you. Oh, that is awesome.
So what we do, we try and match that so that if we ever do get in comic book stores, you'll be able to instantly recognize it on the shelves. And something we've done from the very first campaign is we have a variant that's a kind of special thank you to our backers where they can get something that they can only get from this campaign.
Okay. And then it also looks like we have a Chibi Rage Puppy die cut magnet. So this is going to be there's only 50 available. So is this an add-on for all the tiers?
Yeah, that's a little add-on, you know, a little something to protect your fridge with, you know, stay out and the little Rage Puppies can get you.
And then cameo. So this is starting to feel like a tradition. For the highest tier, you offer the opportunity to have yourself, a loved one, or an original character in one of the pages of chapters 4. So I think that's a really cool tier as well.
It's been one of our popular tiers in every campaign. Like, we've already had 2 backers out of the 5 filled up on that one. So
yeah, let's go.
We usually get 4 or 5 of them every time, and it's always fun to go back and show them off to people.
So here's a quick look at some of the reward tiers. You can get Chapter 4 digital PDF for $5. The digital catch-up tier for $12. That's a pretty outstanding price for 4 different chapters. Chapter 4 physical for $10. The catch-up bundle physical for $35. So yet again, I mean, you're only paying $25. You're getting 3 other comics or 3 other chapters with that. So outstanding price as well. At $15, we have the Chapter 4 variant. Oh, I think I was going side by side, but I might have been off a little bit. Chapter 4, both covers for $25. And then, so Chapter 4 plus donation at $60. So can you give us a little bit more about that?
Sure. It's something we got in late on our last campaign. There was some bureaucratic red tape we had to get through. But where I work now, I work in the juvenile probation department. And we actually manage the juvenile hall and the boys ranch in our county. And I have secured a way to donate copies of these to the youth that are being detained in those facilities.
Oh,
so
that's
if you
cool.
back this, so if you back this tier, we'll donate 2 of each chapter for a total of 8 books. And we donate those directly to the facility librarian. They do have to alter them slightly because the kids aren't allowed to have staples. But it's a neat little process where they remove the saddleback staple and then they thread through there and tie it off.
That's pretty smart. That is pretty smart, though. And then,
so
go ahead.
I was gonna say that it's just something that. I was really excited about when the idea kind of clicked as a way to kind of give back through my work and to do something different and use those channels that I have to maximum effect.
And it looks like finishing it off, we have the cameo tier at $100. And then we have some of the add-ons too. So we have that magnet, of course. What are the other, those are the chapters, right? The PDFs?
Right, and that's basically trying to make it accessible to, returning and new fans. So if you missed one, you can, pick up Chapter 4 and then add any chapters that you may have previously missed.
No, absolutely. And then here is a look at some of the stretch goals. So at 3,000, you have a Jack Irons print. So that's going to be an 8.5 by 11 print of an original illustration by Rosalind Summers. So that's awesome. We actually interviewed Cody on the show, I want to say about a month or 2 ago for his last Indiegogo campaign. So that's cool. We were talking backstage how you two actually have met before and you're going to be doing some work for him, correct?
Correct. I have a project. You get a preview of that if you back the Jack Irons 4 campaign. It's actually on Indiegogo, but it's called The Recluse. It's basically my own original character that I'm playing in Cody's sandbox, so to speak. And you'll get the first 5 pages of that as a preview if you back Jack Irons number 4.
And then at 5,000, we have a trading card, a collectible Wraith-themed trading card. With a design to be determined. And then the last tier is completely locked off. So any hint at what that could be, or is that still kind of up in the air? That's a little bit up in the air. I think what it might be is an expansion on something I'm already working on. So we'll see if we can make that happen. No, absolutely. So underneath this, we have the creative team once again. So do you want to give your creative team a shout out once more? Oh, absolutely. Drew Smith, she's the concept artist, editor and project assistant.
We gave her the project assistant because she's pretty much there helping me through every step of this. And that was the best title we could come up with for her, where, you know, it kind of covered all those bases. And then, you know, we talked about our page artist, Emmy Utreya, who really brought us up to that next level. And he's just been phenomenal to work with. I'm lucky to be working with him.
No, that is awesome. And then, go ahead.
Of course, our publisher, Wicked Publishing, who's been there and kind of helped mentor us and introduce us to other creators like Cody and the other Wicked creators. And, you know, we've been helping and supporting each other, you know, along our creative journeys, which has been fantastic.
No, that is awesome. This is the campaign in its entirety, correct?
Yeah, this is
Cool.
in its entirety. You know,
cool.
we've got 6 pages done. You can actually go to the updates. We're actually showing off the.
I accidentally closed out of it.
Oh, no problem. You can go in and to the updates, and we're releasing the pages, the first 6 pages of chapter 4.
Okay.
And so you'll be able to preview them, and then we're also putting those up on Global Comics as a chapter 4 preview as well.
Absolutely. And once again, here's the link to check that out if you missed our breakdown of it. So with us having just looked at it a little bit extensively, taking a bit of a deep dive, what would you say to anyone that is on the fence about backing, like in this moment right now? If you could have a few seconds to say something to them to help push them over that barrier, what would it be?
It's a great story, great art, great price, and we've got a history of delivering. Plain and simple, you know, like we do whatever we can to get through any, you know, road bumps. We've gone through COVID with all this stuff, you know, we're going to get it done.
Let's go. That's awesome, Scott. And as much as this is a podcast where we really break down who you are as a creator and then what your book means and everything in between, we also like deep diving a little bit into just the creative process as well, with a certain question in particular. So with that being said, for anyone out there that might be listening and starting for the first time and they're kind of just having trouble to get started, what type of, you know, advice would you offer them to help them get motivated enough just to get going?
The same advice that got me started. Just find whatever it is that's holding you back, learn how to do it, and get started.
No, absolutely, man.
If you've got that drive and you've got that determination, you've got that idea, start doing it. And you know, focus on what's going to get you forward. You know, page work, concept art. You know, don't spend too much time in that concept art phase. Like, get the pages done. That's what people want to see. That's what's going to get you in front of readers and backers.
No, that is awesome, Scott. I appreciate that. You know, as always, this has been an awesome sit down. I definitely loved getting you on. We're gonna have to get you back on for chapter 5 when that drops. Any idea, you know, when that's gonna happen or what's next for you?
You know, when we lock this up, I'm hoping we can start production after, you know, we start doing the printing and shipping for chapter 4.
Okay, let's go. So not, you know, right around the corner. That is awesome. Scott, as always, thank you for coming on. Everyone watching, this has been an awesome podcast. Be sure to check out that link if you can't back it. Word of mouth is 100% free, and you might know someone who is going to love this book. As always, I hope you guys have a fantastic Sunday night, but most importantly, keep it geekly.